It was a snowy day in my hometown of Minneapolis as my mom's car drove down the highway. I was wearing my gym uniform and I was headed back to school after a doctor's appointment when suddenly the phone rang. She answered. She didn't say a word, she just listened. She hung up, exited the freeway, turned around, got back on, and drove all the way back up to the front doors of the Minneapolis Children's Hospital that we had just left. Once inside, I was taken one way and she was taken another. A nurse weighed me, took my temperature and my blood pressure, even though she'd done it just a few hours prior. Then she took a pair of scissors. She cut off my paper hospital wristband and replaced it with a hard, sturdy plastic one. That was the moment I knew that something was really wrong. Eventually, I was taken to find my mom. She was in a windowless, small, dark room with a doctor I'd never met before. They were staring at a screen. It was January 9th of 2015, when at 13 years old, a mass was discovered in the pons of my brain, inoperable and untreatable with chemotherapy and radiation. I was told that there was nowhere on earth that would be able to treat me, and I was sent home with no next medical steps and an 8% chance of survival for 6 months. I lived the next 10 years as the dying girl. I told this story publicly for the very first time on a TED stage in Chicago at 15, 2 years post-diagnosis, still somehow against all odds alive. And I've told it dozens of times on stages around the world, from the United Nations to the White House to Capitol Hill, while fighting for legislation. But somewhere in that journey, my perspective of the entire experience began to shift. It shifted enough that I stood on that stage at 15 and told people that this right here was the best thing that had ever happened to me, whether I truly fully believed it yet or not. Now I understand it is an immense privilege to be able to say those words. In the past 10 years, I have lost more friends to this illness than I can count on my hands. And I know that their parents probably don't agree this is the best thing that has ever happened to them, but I realize that a lot of the families in this experience share a very similar perspective, an outlook of the world, life, and time. I thought it was interesting that something a lot of people labeled as one of the worst things that can happen to a person became something that I was extremely grateful for. I felt like I had been handed a gift, a reset button, an opportunity to live the life that I probably always should have been living. I wanted to break this down further. I wanted to dive into this perspective and see if there was some sort of step or equation that got me to where I was, because I had no idea how I ended up here. But after living this science experiment for a few years, I think I found a few. Astronomer Carl Sagan once said, "If you wish to bake an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe." I heard this quote in middle school science class, and I have to admit I had no idea what he was talking about, but as we dove deeper in the chapter, I fell in love with this idea that for millions of years, millions of moments had to perfectly align so that I could exist and do something as mundane as bake an apple pie. I wondered to myself, if a million moments led to this moment, which moment will lead to the million after that? And so I began pursuing anything and everything that interested me, no matter how small, curious of what it may lead to. I tried crocheting. It lasted about a week. I bought a random guitar on a random Tuesday. That one lasted a lot longer. I began pursuing my dreams in the film industry, and that one led to some pretty incredible moments too. Suddenly, nothing was that scary to me. The only thing scarier than the idea of failure was the idea that I might not have the chance to try at all. I began swimming through conflict instead of drowning in it. But I wanted to know, what if I could not only swim through conflict, what if I could transform it? I'd been living a story that a lot of people had labeled as a sad one. I was the girl with the brain tumor with no treatment and no hope, but I didn't really agree with them. I'd removed the traditionally perceived context of a brain tumor diagnosis and replaced it with my own context, a new one. And if I could do this for the hardest thing I'd ever had to face in my life, what if I could start doing it for little things too? What if that red light was just an opportunity to sing your favorite song one more time? What if that pile of trash in your house that you've been avoiding is actually your next art project? I began looking at things I had never truly seen and appreciating things that I never truly thought about. One day I was painting and I spilled a giant cup of water everywhere, and my very first thought was, look at those colors, I have to take a picture. And so with some practice, a lot of practice, and still some tears, suddenly conflict was just an opportunity for redirection. That redirection led me a lot further than I could have ever imagined. I was directing and starring in films, going viral online and writing best-selling books, and I was the chair of a program with the White House for survivors. But as I began to travel the world, I realized that this thing called life was a lot bigger than just me, and no one can accomplish anything truly alone. When I think about how big the universe is, I feel very small, and I feel like nothing really matters. But as we began diving deeper into these concepts, I wondered if the thing that actually mattered was each other. If we really were just this blip on a timeline of coincidence, what if people were the important thing? And because nothing mattered, everything did. We spend a lot of our lives trying to collect stories. We have places we want to go, people we want to meet, and jobs we want to achieve. But what if the real point of living was actually giving stories to other people? What if just by being you, we could change the world? I truly believe that each one of our brains and our personalities has something unique to offer this planet. And as cliche as it sounds, there is no other you on Earth. So what if, just by being you, you could impact the people around you enough that you become a moment on someone else's Pi Theory timeline that leads to something incredible? Now, I'm not telling you to be Superman or run into a burning building. I'm not even telling you to do good. I know that doing good is exhausting. I'm just telling you to do something. What if just by being you, we could change history? And so it becomes an infinite loop, a loop that I try to put into practice every single day. I stand in front of you as the dying girl, but what a lot of people don't realize is we're just a bunch of dying people. No one's getting out alive. And so brain tumor or no brain tumor, I'm aware of the fact that I do have a limited amount of time. I think this life feels infinite because it's our infinity, but the truth is that it's not. And it's easy to forget that when we wake up day after day and expect it. I wasn't handed mortality that day in the hospital. I just became conscious of it. But I think if we can focus on moments, past, present, and future, challenge context that's handed to us by society and peers, and focus on our connections with others while we do the last two, I think we have an opportunity to transform the time that we do have left. And so, to borrow a few very dramatic parting words from 15-year-old me's TED Talk, we don't always have control over the events that happen to us, but the ability to make decisions, to live our lives, and to go for our goals now, as little Grace said, well, it might just save us. Thank you.